In a village that never had light, one lantern held a secret, and it chose the darkest night to reveal it. In a small village on the edge of the savannah, where the nights were as black as the inside of a calabash, there lived a boy named Aaron. The village was surrounded by tall grasses that swayed like ocean waves, and the sky at night was a wide, open mouthful of silent stars. The village had no electricity, only firelight and moonlight. Their homes were made of clay and thatch, and their roads were paths beaten into the earth by the feet of many generations. In the center of the village stood an ancient baobab tree, the old storyteller of the land, with roots like the fingers of the past. Beside the baobab hung a lantern, but it was no ordinary lantern. It was carved from a hollowed-out god, wrapped in cowhide, and painted with symbols of the ancestors. The symbols were not merely decoration, they were prayers, stories, and warnings. When the lantern glowed, it felt like the ancestors were speaking through the light itself. Every evening, the villagers gathered around it. The elders would sit like mountains, and the children would sit like scattered seeds. They would sing songs that sounded like rivers, and tell stories that tasted like honey. Then the lantern would light their way home, like a faithful friend guiding them through the night. But one night, the lantern went out. The village plunged into darkness. The night swallowed the village like a hungry lion. No one could see their own hands. No one could find their door. The women's firewood lay scattered like fallen teeth. The goats wandered away, their bells ringing like distant thunder. The elders began to whisper, fearing the spirits had turned their backs. A silence grew over the village like a thick blanket. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. Then, in the middle of the darkness, a boy named Aaron stepped forward. He did not cry or panic. He did not tremble like a leaf in a storm. He walked calmly toward the lantern and placed his hand on its cowhide skin. The lantern was cold, like a sleeping animal. Its surface was cracked, and the paint had faded, but it still felt alive, like it held a heartbeat beneath the shell. Aaron whispered, "Ancestors, please guide us. Don't leave us in darkness." Nothing happened. Aaron waited. Then the lantern glowed faintly, like the last ember of a dying fire. But it didn't stay bright. It flickered, like it was trying to remember something. Aaron leaned closer and heard a faint voice. Not from the lantern itself, but from deep inside his heart, as if the ancestors were speaking through him. "I remember. I remember." Aaron realized the lantern was not broken, it was lost. The lantern had forgotten how to shine. So Aaron made a promise. "I will help you remember," he said. That night, he carried the lantern to the village griot, the storyteller and keeper of history. The griot lived in a small hut covered in palm leaves, with drums that hung like sleeping snakes and old scrolls made of animal skin. The griot took one look at the lantern and nodded slowly. "This lantern is not ordinary," he said. He explained. "The lantern does not burn oil or fire. It shines on memories. It remembers every good deed, every brave act, and every act of kindness the village has ever done." He placed his hand on the lantern and spoke softly, like a father speaking to his child. "Remember when the hunter shared his last meat with the old woman? The lantern flickered. Remember when the mother carried her baby through the storm? It flickered again. Remember when the young man saved the child from the crocodile? The lantern glowed brighter. Each memory made the lantern shine a little more. But it still wasn't fully lit. The griot looked at Aaron. "It needs a memory that belongs to you," he said. Aaron thought about his life. He remembered the night his father left the village to travel to the far river lands and never returned. The memory came to him like a sharp thorn in his heart. He remembered the sadness, the loneliness, the emptiness. He remembered how the village felt like a drum without a beat after his father left. He felt the memory burn in his chest like a hot coal. He placed his hand on the lantern and said softly, "I remember the night my father left." The lantern trembled. It grew brighter than the fireflies on a warm night. The light spread through the village like the sunrise spreading across the savannah. The darkness vanished. The villagers cheered, their voices rising like a flock of birds taking flight.
The spirits are among us, guiding our path through the darkness.
The lantern shone like a star beneath the baobab tree. But the lantern didn't just light the village. It showed images, memories from the past. It showed the village as it used to be. It showed the day the first lantern was carved. It showed the day the village survived the great drought. It showed the day the elders danced with the spirits under the full moon. And then it showed one last memory. A man standing by the river, Aaron's father, holding the same lantern. He looked at the lantern, then looked toward the village, and whispered, "I will return when the lantern remembers me." Aaron stared in shock. He turned to the villagers and said, "He's still alive." The village fell silent. The air felt heavy, like a storm about to break. Aaron's heart raced like a drum in a festival. He realized the lantern didn't just remember kindness, it remembered love. And now, it had remembered him. That night, the lantern shone brighter than ever before. It wasn't just a light. It was a promise. Aaron knew what he had to do,